My 3-step process to find top talent and avoid bad hires. Workforce research estimates that a bad hire can cost you up to 200% of their salary. Now let's make that real. You hire somebody at $150,000. 6 months later, you realize it's not working. You're not just out of salary, you're out up to $300,000. But here's what doesn't show up on your P&L. Standards quietly erode. High performers start compensating. Deadlines tighten, and your energy shifts from growth to damage control. And the heaviest part, you made the call, and that weight compounds if you don't fix your processes. I learned the hard way, but today I'm gonna give you my exact 3-step process to make sure this never happens to you again. The hire that looked perfect. Early in my hiring career, I brought on somebody I was sure would elevate the team. Strong resume, great references, confident, articulate. Everything that you could imagine as a hiring manager wanting to have and elevate your team. Look, the interview felt great. And honestly, that was the problem. It felt great. It was conversational, easy. I mean, the chemistry was high. My gut said, this is the one. But within 60 days, performance gaps started surfacing. And after 90 days, it was undeniable. The individual was not competent at the work I'd hired them to perform. They were great on paper. They had the confident and personal skills that seemed like it would bridge the gap, but they weren't aligned to the real demands of the role. And that was my fault. My team felt the friction before I fully acknowledged it. And suddenly I was spending 30% of my time managing their execution gaps instead of driving growth. I wasn't just losing money, I was losing my own bandwidth. Nothing was wrong with them. It was my process that was wrong. I replaced objective rigor with instinct. And chemistry, while it's important, is not a great hiring strategy. At least not over the long run. So that experience forced me to simplify and systemize my hiring process. Not add more hoops, not add more rounds, but simplify it. So if you want the full breakdown of my structured scoring and panel evaluation, check out my other video on how to handle panel interviews correctly. I walk you through my exact grading principles that I use in my interview process and include a free downloadable plan that you can incorporate into yours. Now, this video is about intent, the purpose behind each stage so that you can adapt it to yours. Each stage serves a different objective. The goal? Eliminate bad hires out the gate. Now let's start with stage 1, the 15-minute call out. Objective? Eliminate misalignment early. Now this is not a deep interview, this is a filter. In 15 minutes, I'm evaluating 3 things. Communication clarity. I'll ask, walk me through your current role. What are you accountable for and what metrics define success? Strong candidates are structured. They'll distinguish between what they've led, what they've supported, and what they've influenced. Now, if a candidate answers every question with, we did this, we did that, but can't isolate what they actually contributed to, that is a massive red flag. Clarity in speech reflects clarity in their thinking. Now, depending on the role, you may need different blends of leadership, support, and execution, but mastery over their scope is non-negotiable. This step helps you decide quickly, is a deeper conversation worth it? Role alignment. Why this new role? And why now? Are they running towards growth or away from discomfort? Because there's a big difference between I'm ready to scale enterprise initiatives and my manager is difficult and I need a change. Studies show that reactive hires carry some of that dissatisfaction into their next role. This is also the place where you can align on compensation because misalignment at this stage wastes everybody's time. Motivation and trajectory. What are you looking for in your next move? High performers typically optimize for scope, impact, leadership, or growth. Now, if their motivation centers just on perks and flexibility without any clarity on their contribution, that's insight that's worth noting. You really need to think about this stage as protecting your calendar. If they clear it, move fast. Stage 2, the 45-minute technical interview. Objective, gather decision-grade evidence. Now, this is the most critical stage. Often structured as a panel interview to gather multiple perspectives, the goal here is simple. Understand exactly where their skill set starts, where it stops. And the format really depends on the role because not every technical interview should look the same. Format number 1, structured tactical interviews. Now, as I mentioned before, the format depends on the role. Let me give you an example from the project management world. If I'm hiring for a delivery-focused role, I need expert-aligned tactical questions. So these are not hypotheticals, these are not generic prompts. The goal here is precision. For example, for project scheduler, I might ask, walk me through how you build a schedule from scratch. Brand new project, you don't know anything about it, where do you start? What inputs do you need? And what strategies have you found define success? Now here, the order of their thinking matters. Do they start with scope clarity, things like WBS structure, stakeholder alignment, risk identification, or do they jump straight into the software and leave everything vague? Now, for a project control analyst, we might ask them, what sort of metrics do you use to identify cost variances early? Like before you go and give the executive presentation. Strong candidates will reference metrics like CPI, SPI, EAC, FAC, things like cash flow forecasting, and then talk about the methodologies that they used in order to execute them. Whereas back to our scheduler example, we might ask things like, how do you validate schedule integrity in P6? And there you're gonna be listening for logic ties, float analysis, constraint validation, and critical path management. You get those answers and then push further. What happens if your critical path shifts mid-project? How do you communicate that? What forms are you using? What's your escalation path? And then most importantly, give me an example of a time this happened and then what you did to prevent reoccurrence. Push until you find the edge of their knowledge. Everyone has limits, and that's okay. Your job is to determine whether those limits are acceptable for this role. Format 2, business case and data set presentation. Now, this might be for data heavy roles like analyst, strategy. Now, for highly analytical roles, conversations are not enough. You need to see them think. For our clients, we create a real world business case using unfamiliar data sets. I send it 24 hours in advance with clear instructions. Analyze the data set, identify insights, build recommendations, and come ready to present for 10 to 15 minutes at the start of the interview. And then we begin the interview with their presentation. This reveals a number of different things. Some of the most important ones are preparation disciplines, executive communication, analytical structure, and how clearly they're able to present a narrative. Do they lead with insights or get sidetracked and drown in the data? After the presentation, you can ask them to unpack their model. You'll start to uncover what were their assumptions. What was their validation logic? The important part here is to identify blind spots, and then you can start to apply the pressure. A good question for that would be something like, now if a skeptical CFO were challenging you on your assumptions, what objections would you anticipate? You start moving away from their data experience and more into their strategic foresight, risk awareness, and composure. Anyone can rehearse their slides, but only those individuals who have dug in and thought through their logic can defend it under scrutiny. This format dramatically reduces the risk of rehearsed answers. The non-negotiable, standardization. Every candidate for the same role should face the exact same evaluation structure. Otherwise, you're comparing vibes and not evidence. Structured hiring reduces bias because bias is what increases risk. Stage 3, the 30-minute hiring leader screen. Objective, protect culture and scale impact. Now, by this stage, competence already validated. Now the questions shift. Will this person elevate the team? Now for mid-level roles, this is about cultural contribution and leadership posture. And for senior roles, the stakes get even higher. You're evaluating for things like enterprise impact. When evaluating for this, I break it down into 4 key areas. Area number 1, leadership and team development. At the leadership level, you're hiring a team multiplier. So ask questions like, how do you develop and coach your direct managers? How do you nurture and develop high impact talent? And how do you keep leaders accountable for both results and development? Now here you're listening for coaching frameworks, succession planning, and accountability standards. Strong leaders build depth and weak leaders build dependency. Strategic thinking and business impact. How do you connect delivery to long-term strategy? Tell me about a strategic decision that you made that made measurable impact. What was that impact? At higher levels, leadership needs to extend beyond operations. Even if they're in an operational role, the focus here is how are they thinking about enterprise value? If they can't articulate measurable outcomes, that's a signal that they didn't have the impact that they might have alluded to. Empowerment and escalation judgment. So for consultancies, this is really important. It's good to find out how these leaders frame themselves out as both a leader, a mentor, and when they step in and take control. So I'll usually lead with questions like, how do you decide when to step in versus when to empower? Micromanagers here suffocate scale, but hands-off leadership creates chaos. You're looking for a strategically calibrated blend of the two. Stakeholder management and influence. This is where you learn whether leaders are going to build themselves up or build their teams up. Questions like, give me an example of how you've built credibility with executives, all while advocating for your team. Right here, you're assessing executive presence, diplomacy, and composure under pressure. Now, at the higher levels of your organization, misalignment spreads faster, and it can break down teams. Culture drift is expensive, and this stage protects your long-term ceiling. But having the perfect 3-step hiring process means absolutely nothing if you fail at this next part. The hidden multiplier. Speed. If someone clears step 1, schedule step 2 within 48 hours. If they clear step 2, move on to step 3 within 72 hours. You've got to understand that high performers have options, and a slow, fragmented process signals friction within the company. I can't tell you how many top-notch candidates I've lost just because my client had too far of an extended process or somebody went on vacation. Structure enables speed, and speed secures talent. Before we recap, here's my 5 guardrails to make sure that this works perfectly. Number 1, define success metrics before reading resumes. Number 2, separate trainable gaps from fatal flaws. These are your non-negotiables. Number 3, require independent scoring from your panel of interviewers before the debrief. Number 4, debrief within 48 hours. And number 5, never let urgency override standards. Now, the cost of a delayed hire is measurable, but the cost of a wrong hire compounds. All right, final recap. Stage 1, the 15-minute call out. Filter for clarity and alignment. Stage 2, the 45-minute technical interview. Validate capability and find the edge of skill. In stage 3, the 30-minute hiring leader screen to protect culture and long-term scale. 3 steps, no fluff, no guesswork. Now, bad hires are expensive, but great hires build your organization. And the difference isn't instinct, it's a disciplined process. If your hiring feels emotional, slow down and structure it. Because hiring isn't about who interviews the best. It's about who performs the best 6 months from now. Now, if you're a founder or a hiring leader who's tired of the guesswork, and you want to build a professional team, click the link in the description and book a free 15-minute consultation with me. We'll work together and tailor this exact 3-step process to your company. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.